So we're going to be taking a look at 9 pro tips. And when I say pro, I'm meaning a literal professional Call of Duty player who plays Modern Warfare competitively at the highest level. I'm not talking about good YouTubers or people that are just good at the game. I'm talking about professional players that play with money on the line. Some of these tips might actually be a little bit of review for some of you if you've been following Call of Duty for a while, because some of the tips are more just general COD tips, while others are specific to Modern Warfare. So just a reminder, if you enjoy the content and you'd like to see more of it on the channel, please remember to hit that like button. And if you're brand new to the channel or you're part of the 88% that is not currently subscribed, definitely consider subscribing with notifications on so it'd be a little bit easier to come back to the channel for more Call of Duty content. So the first one I'll go ahead and talk about is overall sensitivity and accuracy. A lot of times people wonder why the pros are so accurate. Obviously on console we're going to have aim assist with the controller, but the real thing is they have the right sensitivity that works for them, and they're usually pretty in tune with what their sensitivity should be. But a lot of times I end up seeing people where they're adjusting their sensitivity on a daily basis between matches and they can never really dial it in. What I would recommend doing is trying to find the right sensitivity for you, is go through some practicing with bots and really just find out where you're most accurate. A lot of people are going to find this sensitivity somewhere between 5 and 10, but some people will go way above that, and typically if you're above that, then you already are more comfortable with what your sensitivity is in the first place. So the next tip we'll go ahead and talk about is slide canceling, and this one actually works a little bit different in this Call of Duty than it's worked in previous Call of Duties, because normally how it would work is you'd go ahead and slide into a movement and then you'd aim down sight and it would automatically pop you up. And if you did this behind cover, you'd go ahead and pop up, be able to see your enemy before they saw you, just slightly, and you'd be able to land in a couple shots before they even saw you. So for whatever reason within this Call of Duty, they've gone ahead and changed up the mechanic a little bit. You still want to go ahead and try and pull off the same thing, but for whatever reason, when you aim down sight, it doesn't pop you up. And then when you actually attempt to jump, it actually makes you jump instead of changing your stance to the standing stance. So the way you have to actually work around this so you can still pull off the same technique is while you're mid slide, you have to press crouch again, and then that'll kind of halt your slide, and then you can actually press jump, and then that'll pop you up the same way you would have seen it as a slide cancel in prior Call of Duties where you had to aim down sight. So it's way more technical in this Call of Duty, but it's pretty much what you have to do to pull off this technique where you pop up, they don't see your head, you're able to land a few shots and inevitably win that gunfight. All this is based off knowing where the exact player is. So obviously in a competitive match where it's a 1v1, you know someone's sitting on a head glitch. You can see how I come up, able to snap on, and then able to land those shots. That's pretty much how you'd pull off this technique. Easily, this is 10 times harder to pull off than it was in BO4, because in BO4, all you had to do was just slide, aim down sight, it would automatically pop you up and you'd be good to go. So next up is shoulder peeking, and what a lot of times people don't realize in this game, the way the camera angles are, how close you are to cover, the way your vantage point is, it can be good to get some quick intel, but keep in mind with the low time to kill in this game, you got to be very quick with it. Just get the intel, get in, get out, or else you're likely to die rather easily. So right here's a good example where the body's going to be showing, but he can't actually see me on the screen. And a lot of times if someone's pre-aiming that edge, they're going to be able to insta-melt you no matter how quick you are on the trigger. So that's not all bad. You can actually shoulder peek really quick, maybe take damage but don't instantly die. And then you're going to go ahead and use that information to re-engage using a technique called cameraing. And there's different elements to cameraing. We're going to focus on one here where pretty much you just jump out and you go ahead and take the engagement. And the reason you want to do this is because they're always going to see you coming out of that pathway delayed than you're actually coming out. So very often, if you know where the person's at, if you jump around the corner really quickly and you know exactly where they're at, you're able to land a couple shots because on your screen, you have the peeker's advantage. And this is even especially more evident when you're playing in an online environment where you're actually going to be able to see them a few milliseconds before they can see you. And if you're able to see them, you can usually land 1 or 2 shots, which inevitably will put you ahead to actually win that gunfight. The next thing you'll see a lot of pro players do is called the Bunnyhop. And what they do is they actually go into a full-on sprint. They use that double sprint right when they know they're going to come around the corner. They go ahead and jump out, and then as soon as they land, they go ahead and press jump again, and it kind of looks like a little weird bunny hop. I'm going to go ahead and slow it down for you so you can go ahead and see it a little bit slower on what it looks like when the enemy player does it. And as you saw right now, it doesn't look like a big deal. Obviously on your end, it's not going to be a big deal, but on the enemy player's screen, it's almost like you bounce or jump up an invisible box for that second jump, which is a little bit weird the way it ends up looking. So it doesn't look all that crazy even when we zoom in and slow it down, but I can guarantee you when your enemy sees this in real time, it's definitely going to throw off their aim. So the next tip I'd like to focus on is what I'd like to call door management. And there's different ways you can utilize doors. This is actually a brand new mechanic for Modern Warfare, so it's something we've kind of had to learn and adapt to. Obviously, if you're going for the stealthy approach, if you aim down sight, you can actually open the door and you'll see how it makes very little noise there. You want to go ahead and open the crack, maybe throw in a tactical nade, a flash nade, a grenade, whatever the case is. The door will allow you to throw it in perfectly as long as you aim it in there. So it works out pretty good, especially if you flash it, close the door again, and then you can go ahead and bust through and then hit your shot. So surprisingly, when you actually use the bust through the door mechanic, it works a lot like on those same cameraing techniques that we talked about earlier. When you bust through, if you know where the person's at, you can go ahead and land the shots before they even know that you're actually through the door. So just as the sliding mechanic works, as well as you coming around the corner works, it all relies heavily on you knowing exactly where that enemy is. This is not a tactic where you're going to go ahead and bust through the door, kind of guess where the person's at, try and lock onto where they're at, and then land a couple shots. No, that's not what this technique's for. You literally have to know where that person is, whether it be them on a head glitch or something like that. You have to know their specific location. So it's heavily dependent on the element of surprise and you landing that first and second shot, which will inevitably put you ahead in that gunfight. The next tip we'll go ahead and talk about is centering. And in case you guys didn't know, centering is really easy in this Call of Duty, even easier than previous Call of Duties, because there's actually a little dot that stays in the center of the screen. And for most part, you've always had to imagine this dot in between all of these crosshairs. So what you're typically going to want to do is make sure you have this lined up with where you expect enemies to be. Obviously, I'm not expecting the enemy to be all the way to the far right, so I should have had it on the doorway. As he comes through, you can see he has it pretty much lined up where he thinks enemies are going to be, and it allows for an easy kill. Typically, as I'm heading to that doorway, I want to be lined up where my dot is exactly at the center of that door, so that if somebody happens to come through that door, I can go ahead and aim down sight without any hesitation, land those shots, and get an easy kill. And I'll be honest, with centering, it's one of those things that you're just going to struggle with unless you make it a priority. You have to constantly have it at the forefront of your mind, thinking I have to be lining up where my crosshairs are at all times. If you're moving around the map where you think people are going to be, you got to go ahead and kind of move your crosshairs in that general area, so that by the time you're actually aiming down sight, you're going to cut down on about 100, 200 milliseconds, which will allow you to actually win that gunfight versus losing the gunfight. A lot of times, just something as small as centering can be that different. So the seventh tip isn't necessarily a pro tip in any sense, but it is just a smart way to play the game, and that is to be unpredictable and understand your enemy. So regardless if you're playing search and destroy, hardpoint, headquarters, you kind of learn the behavior of your opponent. Obviously, with pro players and scrims, they kind of learn the behaviors of their opponents, but pretty much for everyone else, we go into a lobby for the first time, we have no clue who our teammates are, no clue who the enemies are, so you kind of got to feel that out right away and then start becoming unpredictable based off your enemy's behavior. You know, if they like to go to a specific room, camp in a specific room, or lock down a specific area, you know, okay, if I was sitting in that area, what is the best approach to catch this person off guard? Sometimes it can be a little bit trickier depending on the map and the mode, but other times it's actually pretty easy. Okay, I'm going to avoid this sight line because the guy's sniping. Let me go ahead and take the long way around and go for the ultimate flank. And more often than not, when you start thinking like that about the way you move around the map based off your opponents, you're going to put yourself in a significantly better position a majority of the time. So the eighth tip has to do with pre-firing and preparing for that re-challenge. Right here, I end up taking damage. I come around the corner and I'm pre-firing. And what this does, this allows me to come back to full health, maybe allows some of my teammates to close that distance if they're just around the corner, especially if they know exactly where the enemy is. I could be saying, hey, they're around the corner, they're going to come around. You can see in this particular scenario, as they jumped around the corner, I did land a shot, but I wasn't able to kill them. But in certain scenarios with a fast time to kill, as you're going to see in the next clip, I can actually pull off the kill even though I'm slightly damaged. I come around the corner, take a little bit of damage, and then I'm pre-firing that area as if they're going to go ahead and challenge. I land the shots and I end up getting the kill. And I obviously went through the various scenarios right now, but basically that is always going to be better than just going around the corner, damage, and then just pre-aiming, waiting for the enemy to jump around the corner. At least in this scenario, you can land a couple bullets and it at least makes that gunfight even. And the 9th tip has to do with baiting for your teammates as well as being bait for your teammates. And what I mean by that is if you're playing in a party, as a lot of these pros are going to go ahead and do, they're going to play with a full squad. They're going to know, hey, you know what, so-and-so is very close to a streak. What I'm going to do is go ahead and run out there. Somebody else is going to give away their position, and that's going to give my teammate an easy kill, which will allow them to get streaks, which a lot of times can actually be crucial in changing the entire momentum of the game. And you even see this in random matchmaking. You know, if you're one off a streak, what you're going to do is let that teammate bait for you a little bit. They don't even know they're doing it. They just might be running out there in the open. The enemy's going to give away their position. You're going to get that easy kill, and then you can use your kill streaks to win the match. So those are the 9 pro tips that I'm pretty sure every professional player knows. Hopefully you guys found the video helpful. If you did, please do me a favor hitting that like button. Let's see if we can get this video over 1,000 likes. And if you're brand new to the channel and you made it to this point, go ahead and make sure you do subscribe with notifications on so you'll be able to find your way back to the channel. Appreciate all the support. Thank you guys for watching. As always, have a great day.